So, so this year, Jessica and I have been prioritizing uplifting Indigenous voices for the Research Forum. And we reached out to Dr. Sanderson first because of the focus of Annie on planetary health and the guiding principle that all humans and more than humans should have access to health and healthy and safe environments, including clean water. And second, because one of Annie's strategic objectives is to expand the paradigm around the possibilities of how nurses can support environmental health. And so that is why we're very excited to have Dr. Sanderson here today. So the land acknowledgement I'd like to read is was originally from WSU, but it was revised by Sue McFadden and Connie Wintrong. We begin by honoring the Indigenous peoples of the land that we are on, honoring the members of the tribes and the Indigenous ancestors. May we honor their struggles and their wisdom past, present, and future. May we use this land to teach with gratitude and to apply research and scholarship that increases the health of the land and its inhabitants. We acknowledge that we live and work on ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples and must consider the many legacies of violence, erasure, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together today. We acknowledge that our nation has benefited and profited from free enslaved labor of people of color. We honor the legacy of the diaspora and lives and the knowledge, skills, human spirit, and excellence that have endured and continue to thrive. There is a movement in diverse communities regarding actionables. We encourage each person to engage in actionable reflection with intentionality regarding the land and labor acknowledgement. And specifically with regards to today, I wanted to share a link from an organization that writes about land acknowledgements, and specifically thinking of one of the top pieces of considering when you're writing a land acknowledgement is thinking about actions that we can take, and one of them is to ensure that we are not appropriating from Indigenous culture and knowledge. So I'm going to just share a link to that for more information and pass it over to you, Dr. Sanderson.
Well, Tanse, warm greetings from Hadi, as they say here in Claytley Today traditional territory. And thank you so much for inviting me. And it's really great to hear from each and every one of you from where you're coming from. And I want to pay acknowledgement to the ancestors of this land, of Claytley Today. And I want to pay acknowledgement to all of your long and illustrious genealogies, the people and the places that you come from, and pay the deepest respect for that. I am, just to give more of a context about myself, I'm a mother of two, and I'm a new grandma of two. I've got a 6-month-old grandbaby and a 3-year-old grandbaby, and I really feel like the work that we collectively do is for future generations, for the next 7 generations. And my background is nursing. I graduated from University of Alberta in 1981, so I've celebrated my 43rd nursing reunion, which I can hardly believe. I think, hey, that's how old I am, but really, I think the time goes really quickly. My undergrad was in cardiac nursing. I spent 17 years as a cardiac acute care nurse, and I absolutely loved it. And I felt compelled to go back to school, so I did a master's in child and youth care, and I was in a country called Vanuatu, which is an archipelago in the South Pacific, where but under the guidance of a Maori elder, conducted community-based research that was reflective of what the community wanted to identify, and we did some work on acute respiratory tract infections in young children at that time, because that's what the community wanted to do. I had this idea in my mind as a researcher that maybe they'd want to address malaria, but they redirected me. And I also had the privilege of visiting Elders Council, and they really wanted to have somebody record their traditional medicines. I felt very honored by that, but I said that it would be really wonderful to have somebody in their own language recording it because in the translation there's so much lost. And anyway, we looked at some of the reasons why children die of early respiratory tract infections and looked at the similar colonial history. And one of the most profound experiences for me was sitting on the property where their house was situated was an elderly man, and he was peeling a yam or a kumara with his grandbaby, and he said that his daughter is married to a minister at that church over there. And he said, I know how to chase away cyclones. And he said, do you think that's a sin? And I said, no, I think that's a blessing. You know, that's something that's really special. That's knowledge that's given to you from the creator. And I saw a lot of parallels, and I think going through the opportunity of spending time cross-culturally, the elders really encouraged me to do my PhD on elders' teachings on water. And I had three Cree elders that I spent time with. One was 110, and one of the most profound experiences for me was going to water ceremonies, where it was at the headwaters of the three great rivers of the Peace River, the North Saskatchewan River, and the Athabasca River. And there was a lot of grizzly bears around there at the time. And and one of the things that the elder said there was we really need to protect the source. So part of maybe we could start the PowerPoint, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of context of what my background is, and I'd like to talk with you today about what might be called original instructions or traditional teachings that I learned from the elders. Thanks for your help with that, Claire. Appreciate it. Some of the things that we could maybe talk about afterwards is, you know, the implications of what, you know, some of these teachings might be for our like, what I can share what the implications have been for my nursing practice, and we could talk about that as well. So that's, yeah, that's just the introductory page. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, I'm associate professor at University of Northern BC. And great to hear that you went there too, Ankar. So the goal of the dialogue today will be a sharing of cultural values about water that are based on the elders' teachings that I learned from their stories. And storytelling is really an important aspect of teaching. And one of the things that I learned very quickly is the value of listening and you know, seeking out elders who are knowledgeable about water and wanted to really listen to what their ancient and their contemporary stories are, to learn about what my own personal responsibility is. And from this dialogue, I hope to create opportunities for self-reflection with nursing students, and hope that those of you that are part of this dialogue can take away some ideas for yourself. I hope that you find it to be of some use. Next slide, please. So the learning objectives that I was asked to reflect on is that perhaps that you know, each of the participants today can reflect on your own relationship with water and how it relates to your own nursing practice, and consider the importance of colonial history on Indigenous people's health and well-being today. Create more opportunities for dialogue, and I hope this is the beginning of more chances to get together to see how we can work together, and also to explore creative ways to build connections between nursing, water education, climate change, and global health. Next slide, please. So one of the things that the Maori elder said to me, it was Kawai to Wingwa, and the word why is water. And that question is, from whose descending waters do you flow from? And that's why, in our cultures, many of us cite who we are, where we come from, the place that's sacred to us, but also our parents, our grandparents, and the reason why that we are here today gathering is because of all the ancestors before us. So I really want to pay acknowledgement again to all of your ancestors for making this day and time possible. When Tommy Manaya said, "Who are you and where you come from?" at a water conference, I thought, well, what does that have to do with water? But really, the one of the traditional uh, teachers or knowledge holders said to me that every cell in our body has all of the knowledge, skill, and experience of all of our ancestors before us. So there's a lot of talk about today about intergenerational trauma, and I'll speak a little bit more about that with the residential school and our colonial history. But there's also intergenerational strength. And I really think that if we really have self-understanding, have an understanding of who we are and where we come from originally, where our sacred waters of origin are, and maybe from many places, then we'll have a better understanding of how we can relate to each other as human beings and how to relate to the natural world. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the beautiful Mother Earth is covered with water, and our creation story was there was before there was any land, there was water, and there was three animals: the beaver, the otter, and the muskrat. And the Wisekajak asked the beaver to dive down to get some clay from the bottom of the water, and the beaver dove and dove and just couldn't do it. And then the muskrat oh, the otter came next, and it was diving and diving and diving and tried to get some clay, but it couldn't. But the humble little muskrat dove and was just about nearly expired, and then came to the surface with the bit of clay that clutched to his chest, and that was the first land. So I've had the pleasure and the honor and the privilege to spend time with many elders, and many Indigenous peoples from all over Mother Earth have their own creation story. And those stories, those ancient stories, teach in the language and through the cultural practices how we as humans can relate to the natural world. And it's through that spiritual connection that we can, uh, find ways to protect. Every single piece of land on Mother Earth who's seen to be a living entity has traditional Indigenous peoples who still carry that knowledge in spite of our colonial history. Next slide, please. So there's northern Manitoba, which is where my mother's ancestry comes from. And as you can see, there's a lot of water there. Looks pretty cold. Next slide, please. So here are some of the elders that I spent time with. In the upper picture is the late Sandy Beardy. He is Cree. And then on the right-hand side is the late Huirangi Waikiripuru. He was Maori, and he was one of the, I guess, trailblazers for the protection of the Maori language. He went to the Privy Council in 1997 to protect to make sure that the Maori language is one of the national languages. And then on the left-hand bottom side is the late Simon Lucas, who is Heshkwet Nuchalnath. And he said to me that if we practiced our traditional Indigenous teachings and laws about water, that we wouldn't have a problem with climate change. So there's a direct relationship with how we treat water and our relationship with water and the effects of climate change that we're dealing with today. Next slide, please. I wanted to show this slide too, so I can show you a little bit. I'm not about the connection between language and health. My Cree language, Nihiao, I'm not a speaker, but I'm close, well, I'm 69 years old now, and I figure it's never too late. I've taken some Cree classes with my daughter, and I really want to learn more about it because there's so much depth and richness to our language. In Cree, the word nipi is water, excuse me, and it actually has linguistic connections to Nipawin, which is the act of dying. And the story that the late Sandy Beardy talked to me about is what his experience was of about the afterlife. The word sippy, I'm sure you've all heard the word Mississippi, which means big river. Mississippi is river. And the word sipiichikyu, it means he or she is patient. So it teaches about the human qualities that we have. And how many of us go to the water or to a water body to feel better when we're feeling sick? I'm sure there's lots of us that do that. Kichikami means the holy ocean, and I saw a parallel with the Maori terminology of tapu ariki, which means the sacred mat. And the sacred mat is something that's yeah, so that's something that is seen like water connects all of us. I know there's a comment there that from Tara that you go to the cabin, and yeah, that's I intentionally rented a house here on Clayton territory to live close to a lake. Excuse me. So Pimituan is water course and Pimitisuan is life. And Mio Pimitisuo is he or she leads an exemplary life. And Mio Pimitisuan is the tree of life. So all of these concepts are all connected. There's so many interconnections to understanding of water, the water's life, but also how we should be living. Next slide, please. And here's a little gift. Well, this is a big gift from the Maori elders. Demonstrated the word of why is water, and it's related to Atea, which is space, infinite space, and the potentiality of the universe. Is potential energy, unlimited, negative, and positive. Wa is time and space, and Watea is clear space and unlimited potential, and AI, is procreation. So the word water includes all of the different concepts of time, procreation, energy, life-giving potential, and when you combine all of those things, the elements of male and female characteristics, space and water, the natural outcome of life and all living things on the planet is related to water. The word for spirit is wairua, and he said that water is the physical form of the spirit. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So some of these things might seem kind of I don't know, common sense, but really basic. But for me, it was really meaningful. And for me, the my doing my PhD was a journey of self-discovery. Um, the one of the teachings is water is life, but it's also fundamental to spirit and related to the afterlife. And when we see the aurora borealis, we know that the ancestors are dancing and close to us. Next slide, please. We're also Cree, we come from the star people. So there's stories about how we come from the stars, and then when we pass, we go back to the stars. This is a picture of an aerial photograph of a delta, and you can see the similarities between the delta of the the water being the lifeblood of Mother Earth is similar to the capillaries and arteries and veins in our own bodies. So lots of when I think about the fact that I was a cardiac nurse, it was a natural progression for me to work towards protecting the lifeblood of Mother Earth. Next slide, please. So water is sacred, water is life, water is the natural element of the universe. There's four elements of the universe, and they're all regarded as sacred, but water is the treasure and a gift from the Creator. Next slide, please. The late Gideon Mackay said that water was our first medicine, and water is something that cleanses us both physically and spiritually. So how can we get better if we have polluted water? We need to really protect water to maintain its cleanliness, not only for ourselves as humanity, but also for all of the life that depends on it. And a lot of, our foods are also our medicines. Like, for example, on the West Coast here, the salmon is seen to be sacred. It's a food, but it's also a traditional medicine. And water needs to be clean to be able to maintain and sustain our traditional foods and medicines. Next slide, please. So water is essential to the beginning of life and needs to be respected. And I think this teaches a lot about our reproductive health as well. Like, we can't have the creation of a baby until you have sperm, and you need to have the different waters to be able to create the unification of ovary and sperm, and to have respect for water and respect for people. Um, we need to teach that respect. And one of the elders also said we need to start in the schools. Next slide, please. So we are cradled by water before we're born. Many cultures sing to their babies before they're born. Does your culture have traditional lullabies? And when you think of the traditional songs that are sung, no matter what Indigenous culture people come from, and we are all Indigenous to some place, there are songs that actually are invocations to the ancestors that call the ancestors to us when we sing. And some of the lullabies, some of the traditional lullabies, carry that message to the unborn babies. Next slide. Pardon me. So Mona Polacca, who I've worked with since 2006, I guess it's been for 20 years now. She's one of the 13 Indigenous grandmothers. She's Hopi, Tiwa, and Havasupai. And she said that when we're born, our waters come first. Then we take that first breath of air. Our parents bring us close to the fire, and in time we learn to walk on Mother Earth. And these are the four sacred elements. So we're carried in water before we're even born. And so I think women have traditional knowledge and understanding about water that men don't necessarily have, because we bring babies into the world. And so one of the things that I realized after I completed my PhD, or while I was doing it, was I was spending all this time with men, and men have different knowledge about water than women do. But it's all special. Next slide, please. Water gives life to all our foods and medicines, like I said. So we really have a responsibility as nurses to ensure that water is clean. Next slide, please. So water's the physical spirit is, excuse me, as I said, that Huirangi had shared with us. And we are 80% water. So if it's a physical form of spirit, and if we are all, if water is a gift from the Creator, then each person is a gift from Creator. And so we need to treat each and every person with respect, because that's that's an acknowledgement to the gift that Creator has given us. And everybody brings different skills and gifts and talents to the world. Next. So it teaches about peace, peaceful relationships. Indigenous elders know how to care for the water, the headwaters, the spring. And as I mentioned, the late Peter O'Chee said, protect the source. So all traditional, many water sources are also sacred sites for the Indigenous peoples. And as communities, we really need to protect the source. There's been a movement to have UNESCO recognize all water sources as spiritual and cultural treasures. That hasn't happened yet, but we're talking about that. Next slide, please. There are places that are so sacred that they're not for people to walk on. So the late Peter O'Chee said to me, "There, maybe you should chase the people off of the ski hills." I don't know how easy that would be, but there are sacred mountains that people should not be walking on because they are so sacred. Next slide, please. We must understand and protect our relationship to the oceans and respect the sea. The Nuu-chah-nulth have deities in the sea, and they have specific songs that sing to those deities. And in my culture, we have spirits that live in the lakes, and that they must be treated with respect and also with reverence. So there's a lot of connection, I guess, to our health and well-being and our spiritual lives. I was privileged to go to at I guess the invitation of the Indigenous Environmental Network. I'm not sure which year it was. It must have been about 2012. I went to a conference in Taiwan that talked about spirituality and sustainability. Water is our common element. And there were people there from all different faith traditions. And pretty much every one of the faith traditions had some kind of water ceremony. So there's a lot of things that we had in common, and a lot of the original teachings of a lot of the different religions also were very similar. I could see a lot of similarities. Next slide, please. So the ocean is seen to be the sacred mat of the world. It was Tapu Ariki, as I mentioned before. And the late Te Tika Mataipo, a hereditary chief from Rarotonga, said that water connects us all. And she said that they live in a little island in the South Pacific. And she said a lot of people think that they're really disconnected or separate from the rest of the world. But in fact, because they're surrounded by water, she said that they are the most connected. And the late Hilda Linney, who's a chief from Pentecost, Vanuatu, said that water teaches us about a peaceful coexistence with the natural world. And there are, as I mentioned, traditional knowledge holders that know very deeply what the daily duties and activities of all of the plants and animals around them are. So that there's I would say that's the longest longitudinal study in the world when you think of all of the years of observation that Indigenous peoples have had with to be maintaining a relationship of harmony with the natural world. And again, I come back to that question for your own reflection of who are you and where do you come from? And if we know who we are and where our answers come from originally, we will understand our place in the world. Next slide, please. So our relationships, the relationality is a huge thing where we have water that's within ourselves, understanding ourselves. The answers also lie within. I really believe that we have an obligation, at least I do, to listen to my own intuition. Our relationships with each other are important and with the natural world. And if we show respect and reverence to water, then it can only improve. I think this is, for me, listening to traditional teachings provides a message of hope the late Louis Sunchild, who is Cree, also talked about the compassionate mind. And I think in academia, we tend to think, get in our own heads. But one of the things I really want to do as a nurse or somebody in health sciences is to bring in more traditional knowledge keepers into the academy to be more heart-centered. And this is also an opportunity to reflect on our responsibility as nurses and what we can do to enhance the health and well-being of the natural world so that we have a future for the next seven generations. Next slide, please. So we convened Tom Goldtooth, who is with the Indigenous Environmental Network. I went to the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in 2007. And he said, well, why don't we gather together some of the elders and knowledge keepers that have been working at the international level for many years to put forward the Indigenous World Forum on Water and Peace, which was actually proposed by the late Huirangi Waikiripuru in 1999. And that would be an opportunity to bring together people in a ceremonial way who have a deep knowledge about water and you know what we can collectively do together. So this was the working group that we formed way back when, I guess close to 20 years ago now. But we're still talking about how we can do that. And yeah, that's something that we're working towards for the future. Next slide, please. Oh, and just quickly, one of the things that I had the privilege of visiting about 10 different communities in British Columbia in 2010. And Mona Palaka and I went and visited, and different communities wanted to address different issues like climate change, deforestation, mining, pesticides, dioxins, let's see what else. Poor drinking water quality with old infrastructure. And one of the communities who I'm still working with is the Clayton and they're forming a sovereign research center. And what they did was they created this declaration in their own language that was reflective of their own understandings, their relationship with water, their laws, values, and practices. Next slide. This is in their language, the Clayton language. Next. And I'll have the English interpretation after this. The reason why I put that at forefront is so often we have English that's sort of privileged. Next slide. Next slide. So that's their statement. And they said, we, the Clayton Corps, are guided by the purposes and principles of our traditions. I'll let you just read that. Take a moment to read it. Okay, next slide if you're finished. Assuming you're quick readers. So this is a statement that the Clayton Co. have done, and when we did a water workshop with the Okanagan Nation Alliance, they created their own. Like it was actually interesting because different communities want different amount of facilitation. But when I went to the Okanagan Nation Alliance, I just basically sat and observed because they facilitated their own dialogue about how they wanted to develop a water statement. And they did do that they started in 2010. And then I just saw this last spring that they've developed a whole curriculum that's based on the values and principles that they articulated in their own nation. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that's the Clayton Co statement. I think I might be running out of time here, so I want to leave. I'm not sure what the next slide is. We can have a look at that. But I'd like to, yeah, that's basically the finish of the statement. The president late, or sorry, the former president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, proposed in 2007 that there'd be an international convention on water. And that seemed like a wonderful idea, especially if it was guided by traditional knowledge holders, like a UN convention that actually was legally binding. Okay, next slide, please. I think I might leave it at there. That's just some of the work that we've done in different venues at the World Water Forum, which mainly focuses on water, fresh water, and kind of leaves out the importance of the protection of the ocean. And of course, we know about Fukushima and all of the plastics that we have that are a problem in the ocean and the impacts of climate change. So that shows the progression of declarations and statements. In 1999, Huirangi asked for the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education to consider the Indigenous World Forum on Water and Peace. And then at the World Water Forum, it's consecutive years we've been there. And right up until 2024, and then bringing to light the fact that there's been Indigenous declarations all along at all of these fora, as well as the International Indian Treaty Council has created a water declaration at the last UN Water Week. And had 40 signatories of Indigenous organizations from all around the world. I think maybe I'll leave it there. I'm not sure how many more. Oh, this is looking at how we need to have some balance in our life, and the need to balance Western science with traditional science. And that I think the what's Leroy Little Bear, he's a knowledge keeper from the Blackfoot Nation, talks about how Indigenous science is really an important uh, I guess, aspect to consider in terms of moving forward for future generations. I think that's probably all I'll say for now. Just want to leave some time for discussion and also it looks like I was finished pretty much anyways. I also want to acknowledge all of the elders and the knowledge keepers. That was some of the slides at the back that I really want to pay acknowledgement to for the teachings that they've shared. And I think that's it. That's enough for me talking. I'd like to hear from you.